The sub versus dub war seems like it will rage on in anime communities until the end of time. And while in my Psyche K video I covered an English dub that was unanimously loved by Western fans, today I'm going to cover some dubs that are so infamous that just the name can start a firestorm in a comment section. 4Kids Entertainment. 4Kids localized anime for primarily American audiences starting in 1992, until the company filed for bankruptcy in 2012 and gradually fell apart from there. They produce English dubs for such famous titles like Pokémon, Shaman King, and Sonic X, which served as many fans' first introductions to anime when they were young, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to expect them to be a beloved studio. In reality, 4Kids is often either the butt of a joke or the target of an angry forum rant, mainly because of the poor way in which they went about localizing their properties. You see, 4Kids is 4Kids, and so a number of edits were made when translating shows to make them more suitable for a young American audience, whether it's Brock referring to his rice balls as jelly donuts, or Sanji's cigarette being edited into a lollipop. There were also plenty of other strange antics on the CW 4Kids, like Sonic singing the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see?
But for this video, I'd like to just focus on the 4Kids English dubs themselves. They ended up dubbing a lot of popular anime, but for now I'm just going to look at 3 shows and see how terrible these 4Kids dubs are, or if they're really all that deserving of the mockery and hatred they get. The original Pokémon series was 4Kids' first anime localization, and it's gone on to be one of their most famous dubs. After all, Pokémon was just as much of a craze during the late 90s in America as it was in Japan, and the 4Kids dub was the most accessible way to watch an English version of the anime. I'm not a 90s kid though, and I never got into Pokémon, so this is actually my first time watching the show. Hopefully that'll remove any nostalgia factors associated with the dub, and I'll be able to give an honest assessment. And I have to say, as someone who's never really heard the 4Kids dub before, I was pleasantly surprised. This dub just works, but I'm not entirely sure why. It has all of the trademarks of a 4Kids dub with exaggerated voice acting, cheesy dialogue, and nonsensical edits. Still, these common flaws aren't nearly as egregious in the Pokémon dub as they are for most 4Kids productions. Even though this is one of 4Kids' first dubs, I think the cast did a solid job and fit the material perfectly. Veronica Taylor as Ash Ketchum has always been a famous English dub performance, but I never really understood how deserving it was of that status until I watched the show. It's the one performance in the show that I think is genuinely and consistently great. She just brings an earnest energy to Ash that makes him a protagonist we can look up to but still relate to. Sometimes the little boy voice that female English dubbers do comes off as kind of annoying to me, but Taylor's performance never sounds hollow or fake, and I think that's why I ended up enjoying it so much. She really does the heavy lifting as the series protagonist and helps convey the adventurous heart of Pokemon through Ash. Rachel Lillis does a good job of playing off of Ash through Misty. Her character can be grating at times, although part of that is due to her having angry anime girl syndrome, but she still manages to make Misty likable and funny. Lillis also plays Jessie, which I surprisingly didn't notice at first, so nice range, Rachel. And speaking of, Rachel Lillis and Eric Stewart as Jessie and James know what they're here for, and they do a great job of it. Along with Maddie Blostein as Meowth, Team Rocket perfectly delivers their comedic moments and revels in the goofiness of their villainy. Despite being one of the more exaggerated performances of the show, they still can be genuinely threatening and engaging antagonists at times, posing as serious threats to Ash so that the viewer cares about his battles with them. Brock, also played by Jessie's voice actor, completes the trio of main characters and is the character I probably have the most ironic enjoyment for. His performance can be kind of off-kilter at times. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it. Maybe it was just the few episodes I watched, but despite being a capable actor, he would just deliver lines badly sometimes. Yet with Brock, when I would usually get thrown off by a weird reading, it just makes me love him even more. Overall, his performance just has good vibes. He genuinely seems like a down-to-earth, somewhat odd, yet lovable guy who cares about his friends and family, certainly thanks to Stewart's performance, whether intended or not. I only watched the first bit of season 1, so I can't speak too much about the characters outside of the main cast. Professor Oak, Officer Jenny, and Nurse Joy are all recognizable names that I knew before even coming in, so I'll give a brief overview of them. Is it wrong for me to think Professor Professor Oak is weird. Not in a creepy way though, like he's not fully there mentally, but it's quirky and fun. His 4Kids actor Stan Hart has the same energy. Oak is his only notable voiceover role, and the man literally looks like his character. It really was meant to be. His voice is perfect for Professor Oak. Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy, voiced by Lee Quick and Megan Hollingshead, both serve as fun recurring characters and assistants to Ash on his journey. I like when the show pairs them up because Jenny's rambunctious attitude bounces off of Joy's quiet carefulness really well.
We have a driveway, you know.
From the protagonist to antagonist to side characters, all of the dub actors do a great job, and it helps that the dialogue they're given flows well. Still, this isn't my first rodeo, and I can smell the 4Kids on this dub from a mile away. I'm sure a group of professional actors or voiceover artists would view this dub as pretty mediocre, with its cartoonish acting and occasional awkward moments. Admittedly, Pikachu was the only Pokemon voice that I liked, all the other ones were just kind of strange, and the weird censorship, while not as frequent in the beginning of the show, continues to be weird. For some reason, my brain never processed the fact that Japanese characters wouldn't be originally named Ash and Misty, and I just realized how prevalent the 4Kids westernization was. Along with that, there's the frequent removal of Japanese text, which I somewhat understand, and the switches of ramen to pizza, which I don't think I'll ever wrap my head around. To be honest, these minor line and text changes really don't harm the quality of the dub as much as some people on the internet like to insist, but they're still unnecessary changes that trick the audience out of getting a true localization. All things considered, I enjoyed listening to this dub. I didn't feel that sinking feeling of dread and that sudden urge to switch the audio language to Japanese as fast as I could when watching. While the censorship and line changes are inexcusable, I think the over-exaggerated voice acting actually works perfectly. In the West, cartoons are mostly perceived as exclusively for kids, even with the growth of adult animation in the past years. But 4Kids seems to forget that anime is a much bigger industry in Japan that targets a variety of ages, sometimes more often teenagers and adults than kids. 4Kids lucked out with Pokémon in that it was already targeted at children in Japan, as well as being just a high quality show in general, and I think it's why their dub works so well. I mean, they're 4Kids for a reason, so when you take performances that may not be the most polished but have a lot of charm to them and put them in a fun kids show like Pokémon, it works. 4Kids continued to dub Pokémon up to 2006 with Pokémon Advanced Generation, and it grew to be one of their most popular franchises. I think it's one of their best dubs, and it shows 4Kids' potential for greatness when they apply their strengths accordingly to make up for their weaknesses. You know how I emphasize that 4Kids is at its best when they adapt lighthearted, family fun kids shows like 5 seconds ago? Well, they decided to adapt One Piece. Yo! Now look, I've never watched One Piece and I basically went into this dub blind, but I'm pretty sure that a One Piece episode should never start with the Y7 age rating in the top corner. To be honest, the explanation for all this is kind of disappointing. In 2004, 4Kids acquired the distribution rights to Magical Do-Re-Mi, a happy-go-lucky magical girl anime that fit their brand perfectly. This was the show that they wanted to dub, and One Piece just happened to tag along in the package deal like the weird cousin of the family. And somehow, no one knew what the show was really like. No one asked, no one checked, they just all assumed it was a fun pirate show, I guess. Obviously, 4Kids should have done their research before buying, but at the same time, who would ever package Magical Do-Re-Mi and One Piece in the same licensing deal? Either way, 4Kids had lots of content to dub, and lots and lots and lots of edits to make. The 4Kids dub of One Piece has easily gone down as their most infamous, although for this video, I tried looking at it from a different perspective. Obviously, as a faithful translation of One Piece, this dub is a failure, but having never seen the original anime myself, I was able to take this dub just for what it was. Could a kid-friendly version of One Piece succeed? No. I was miserable the entire time. 4Kids One Piece feels like the definition of it's just a kid's show. While many cartoons and just TV shows in general that are appropriate for kids can easily be enjoyed by older audiences, I can't imagine anyone over the age of 10 willingly sitting down to watch the 4Kids One Piece dub. It just has that sensory overload vibe to it where it feels like the creators think they can distract children from the low quality of the show by throwing in a bunch of loud characters and music. I can take corny acting and dialogue. I honestly kind of expect it when watching an English dub, but all of it just piles up in this dub and becomes too much by the end of an episode. To be honest, the voice cast isn't all that bad overall. Erica Schroeder as Luffy can be grating at times, but she manages to pull off the more heartfelt Luffy scenes pretty well while still conveying his rambunctious nature. Zoro, I'm sorry, Zolo? For some reason, with One Piece, they decided to just stop westernizing the characters' names, but they still changed Zoro to Zolo. It's so minor that it really doesn't matter, yet at the same time, the fact that it's so insignificant makes it even more strange. If I got into every weird change 4Kids made when localizing One Piece, I'd be here all day, and plenty of other people have done that. So anyway, Zolo, voiced by Mark DeRayson, was the best performance of the dub in my opinion. It's the only one that I thought was genuinely good and fit his character well, showing how tough and confident he was while still making him a relatable member of the Straw Hats. Kiri Williams gives a solid portrayal of Nami that keeps her from becoming annoying or frustrating even with her selfish motivations. Jason Griffith really goes for it with Usopp to the point where it's a little too much at times.
It's an avalanche!
Still, I thought his acting was good all around, even if I didn't always care for the tone of the voice itself. I have similarly neutral feelings on Chopper and Robin, played by Lisa Ortiz and Veronica Taylor respectively. Chopper's voice is honestly pretty cute and fun to listen to, and while Robin's southern accent was a choice, it works somewhat well considering her cunning nature. Hey, you skipped Sanji!
Love a girl who treats me like dirt.
I don't think you want to hear Sanji. It doesn't take very long to realize that Sanji's English voice doesn't work. I don't even think I would have minded the Jersey, I think, accent, but his voice is so low and dopey sounding that it doesn't fit his cool personality at all. Even when you disregard the weird accent, which in all fairness could have just been a bad decision on the voice director's part, David Moo's acting is the weakest of the main cast. He focuses too much on making Sanji sound chill that he ends up sounding bored and unengaged in what's happening, making the audience feel the same way. While Sanji is the dub's most glaring flaw, he's the only performance that I felt was truly bad. Everyone else did an okay or even good job portraying their characters, and I think what made the 4Kids episodes so hard to watch were the dialogue translations themselves. There are a lot of awkward lines and bad puns that just kill the mood during any serious or tense situation, and the characters feel the need to explain to the audience what's going on a lot. It's hard to sit through, and that's just taking 4Kids One Piece at face value as a kid-friendly pirate adventure show. There's tons of small edits to remove adult content and references to Japanese culture, but the dub also changes or cuts entire story beats and arcs from the show for not fitting their standards, even when it destroys the show's internal continuity. It doesn't help that 4Kids can't even follow their own rules after a while. Sometimes you can show guns, sometimes you can't, and text on clothing isn't allowed until it is. Again, many people have gone into detail on this subject before, but all you need to know is that One Piece is the most heavily edited 4Kids dub, and it's not to the benefit of the show. Looking back on my review so far, it honestly sounds similar to my take on the 4Kids Pokémon dub. The voice actors were fine overall, but there were some annoying changes made that didn't make much sense. Despite this, I enjoyed Pokémon yet hated One Piece. I think it comes down to the fact that Pokémon and One Piece are such different shows on their own. Pokémon features child protagonists going on lighthearted adventures with cute animals against cartoony villains, while One Piece features mostly adults navigating a cruel sea filled with ruthless criminals who are all out for themselves. So, little Timmy, do you want to watch Ash and Pikachu learn the power of friendship, or be introduced to the horrors of a lawless pirate society? 4Kids dubbing just doesn't work with One Piece like it does with Pokemon, and it's this weird Jekyll-Hyde situation where both 4Kids and One Piece are constantly battling for control, leaving the audience with an unbalanced and unenjoyable product. If you're gonna watch the 4Kids One Piece, just watch the opening rap 78 times. It's a better experience than the actual show. I figured I'd get this out of the way right off the bat. I do have some bias when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! Besides Kirby Right Back At Ya, it was really the only 4Kids show I watched, and I think it's what got me and my sister into anime. So it definitely has a special place in my heart, and as a result, I may be more forgiving of the typical 4Kids flaws it has. One thing you do have to give 4Kids credit for, and this is not up for discussion, is that their opening themes go hard, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Theme absolutely slaps. Concerning the last two shows we reviewed, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a bit of a gray area. It has plenty of kid-friendly elements like high schooler protagonists, plot lines about the power of friendship where the good guys always win, and a cool, highly marketable card game tie-in. But at the same time, the show is no stranger to dark territory, with death games and demonic artifacts, as well as some particularly tragic backstories for ruthless villains. It's not as overtly targeted at kids or young adults like Pokémon and One Piece were, and so the dub shifts back and forth between being genuinely good good and bad throughout its run. Again, the voice cast is the most well done part of the show. These dub performances, while never as good as a professionally produced dub today, are consistently enjoyable to listen to and fit the shows they're in perfectly. Funnily enough, it's surprising to hear a male actor play a young teenage boy in an English dub, but Dan Green pulls off Yugi Moto and Yami Yugi so well that it just works. I feel like it'd be easy to see Yugi as a wimpy, inferior version of Yami that would easily annoy the viewer, and it's only thanks to Green's performance that he becomes a genuinely lovable protagonist, even when he's giving another speech about the heart of the cards and the power of friendship. Meanwhile, Yami is a threatening duelist and likable friend to Yugi at the same time, and so his character can still be cool and intelligent without being unengaging. While not better than Dan Green as Yugi in my opinion, Eric Stewart as Seto Kaiba is probably the most memorable performance in the dub. It's the one my dad impersonates the most, at least. In the first few episodes, Stewart is still trying to pose Seto as a serious threat and calculating businessman, but by the end, he does kind of start to take him less seriously.
I'm funny.
Honestly, I enjoyed both performances for their memorability and unabashed angstiness, and I think making his overly arrogant personality more of a joke helps him transition into being Yugi's ally better, as well as keep the other characters in check when they get too melodramatic. Wayne Grayson voices Yugi's best New Yorker friend, Joey Wheeler. I may just be desensitized to it after hearing it for years, but I think the New Yorker voice works well for Joey. He's a kind of goofy, headstrong character, so giving him this cartoonish accent works to the benefit of his character, unlike with Sanji in One Piece. Grayson's acting is similar in that sometimes it can be a little over the top and annoying, but it still has an earnest excitement to it that makes Joey a genuinely caring friend who keeps going no matter what. Taya Gardner, voiced by Amy Birnbaum, has the same strengths and weaknesses as Joey. Her sappy nature and friendship speeches can be grating at times, but she's still a likable member of Yugi's friend group and gains more independence as the series goes on. Greg Abbey portrays Tristan Taylor, the last and least member of Yugi's friend group. Yeah, Tristan's character kind of confuses me. He doesn't duel as much as the other characters and instead seems to solve most of his problems by punching and kicking things. And the performance by Abby only further contributes to this muscle man persona. It's pretty goofy sounding, but because the show never asks you to take Tristan too seriously either, you can appreciate him for what he is and he doesn't become annoying to watch. There are a lot of recurring characters and rivals throughout Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm not going to go as in-depth with them as I did with the main cast. Ryo Bakura and Yami Bakura are both voiced by Ted Lewis, and he's British. For kids, what's with all the unexplained accents? The British really seems pointless here, besides just making him sound more sophisticated and evil, at least from an American perspective. And Lewis's accent isn't the most convincing. If he dropped the British though, his performance could be pretty solid, as he's able to pull off the acting for the innocent Bakura as well as his villainous dark side. Megan Hollingshead's My Valentine is another somewhat over-the-top yet memorable performance that portrays her as a noir femme fatale. Yugi's grandpa Solomon Moto, voiced by Maddie Blostein, serves as an encouraging and endearing mentor figure to Yugi. Recurring antagonists Rex and Weevil, voiced by Sam Riegel and James Carter Cathcart, are, well, they're Rex and Weevil.
Say goodbye to Exodia!
They always kind of scared me when I was a kid. Look, I know I've been giving some of the actors a tough time with their cartoonish portrayals of the characters, but in the end, I'll stand by this cast. Their performances make the audience quickly endeared to the characters, as long as the viewers are willing to suspend their disbelief and play along with 4Kids' heightened reality of friendship signs and shadow realms. Oh yeah, I was today years old when I found out the shadow realm wasn't even in the Japanese version of the anime. 4Kids literally made it up so that no characters could canonically die in a duel. Why, 4Kids? Why do you keep doing this? You have actors that are clearly excited to work on these projects and give their best effort, especially considering they're probably overworked and underpaid as dub actors in the early 2000s. But all these weird name edits and censorship changes and scripts where Taya isn't allowed to say she needs to pee so Tristan tells her, "In another few hours, the sun will rise." I get it, you probably don't want to show a character pointing a gun at someone's head in a kid's show, but all these plot rewrites and pun inserts? Don't kids deserve a better show than this? 4Kids' incessant need to edit everything was really their fatal flaw in my opinion. I understand that there was a need to cut out violent and sexual content for shows running under the Y7 label, and the westernization, while unnecessary, was too minuscule to really affect anything, but they often took too many creative liberties with their shows to the point that entire plotlines and backstories were transformed. They not only gave viewers a disingenuous translation, but their versions didn't even stand very well on their own. And I guess this wouldn't have been as big of a problem problem if 4Kids wasn't the mainstream, if not only, option for English dubs of certain anime during the early years of the 2000s. But at the same time, that's what made them so special. They were pioneers in the English dub industry, and they introduced many young viewers to anime, myself included. So in the end, they did deliver on their promise to make entertaining and engaging content for kids. I think if only they had been able to shake some of their larger faults and adapt to the changing world of anime dubs, they may have avoided their unfortunate fall to bankruptcy. Actually, I have no idea if that's true. I don't know anything about business affairs. Ultimately, 4Kids was not bad or good. I think it simultaneously deserves the praise and criticism that it gets. Criticism for the obvious reasons of censorship and poor adaptation, and praise for creating a variety of voice actors and anime fans through its shows. And even if I might look back on it with embarrassment, I'm glad I was there to grow up with it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.